Hello everyone, welcome to the fifth in our People Matter webinar programme, organised by Cyber Risk Aware in partnership with the Oxford Cyber Academy. Delighted to see you all here today, and as usual it's great to see some regular faces in the audience as well as a number of people new to People Matter. Particularly delighted this morning that Ellie has agreed to join us today live from Singapore. Again this morning, no slides, just an informal chat around human cyber risk, such a critical area of business risk that any organisation faces. And today the theme is diversity, and specifically the role that cognitive diversity within our organisation can play in influencing stronger security behaviours. So the discussion between Ellie and I this morning will last about 45 to 50 minutes. Both Ellie and I are really keen to get your feedback and questions throughout the discussion. So please do send us any comments or questions in the chat box. These are really important to us, and we'll answer as many of them as we can as we progress, or alternatively at the end of the discussion. We'll also be sending out a recording of the discussion today and a summary of today's webinar out to all of you in the near future. Sadly, my friend and colleague who normally attends these sessions, Richard Knowlton, the Director of Security Studies at the Oxford Cyber Academy, is unable to join us today due to personal reasons. So today you just have a double act between Ellie and I. Before our intros, I just wanted to give you a bit of context and purpose behind our People Matter programme. So Richard and I have worked together in this field for many years now. We've known for all too long that cyber criminals target people before technology. And for just as long, we've been repeating the mantra that a vigilant, cyber risk aware workforce is our main defence against cyber criminals. Yet, despite all these messages and all our efforts, we still appear to be struggling to crack this particular problem. Richard and I both believed that we needed a fresh look. We need new ideas and insight and an evidence base for making our people our strongest link. And that's why we've created the People Matter webinar program. It's designed to bring leaders in business, security and academia together to share their challenges, their lessons learned, insight and innovation on this challenging subject. What we hope is that in some small way we can help to provide the guidance, know-how and a trusted network for anyone involved in developing people-centered security cultures and in influencing better security behaviours in their organisations. We can learn from each other, from others outside security, from academia and critically from the very people we want to educate. It's our employees that will often hold the keys to unlocking so many of the challenges and opportunities we face in security culture, awareness, and human risk management. So just a little bit about me first. I've worked in cybersecurity since 2000, and over the last 10 years, I've worked with and advised many organizations, whether that's in the boardroom, with the security team, or with HR and learning and development, to help them adapt and adopt intelligence and data-led approaches to security education. I've also worked closely with academia to better understand the behavioural science that sits behind this and the evidence base for what good security education and behaviour change can look like. And at the end of today's discussion, I'll tell you a little bit more about our next People Matter webinar that's where we've got a leading guy from academia joining us. And for me, we're at the start of this journey. The goal is that we all naturally do security as part of our daily lives, whether that's at home or at work or on the move. It's clear that the modern workplace has changed fundamentally over the last 18 months, making it even more important to adapt our security education around the new working environments we now find ourselves in. So enough about me. So Ellie, perhaps you'd like to do a quick introduction to yourself and then we'll move on with the webinar.
Thank you, Nick, and a big thank you to everyone joining today, wherever you are in the world. Happy to say the sun is shining in Singapore for the first time in a long time, and I hear it is in the UK as well. So that's always yes. A good start to the webinar. And a thank you to you, Nick, and your team, and to Steph and Richard. It's been quite a journey of discovery probing into this theme of cognitive diversity. And in full disclosure, I felt I was pretty diverse, both due to my background, my professional background, my personal background. I'm a very strong advocate of diversity and inclusion in the bank and outside of the bank. But I got to say, I kind of scratched the surface on this cognitive one. I was like, whoa, it's a whole other world, isn't it? And there are obviously areas of overlap, but it has been a really fantastic eye-opener for me. And that's what I love about engaging in these conversations, is we learn so much along the way. So a bit of background about myself. I'm currently the head of training and awareness for trust, data, and resilience for the bank. So what does that actually mean? So cover all of training and awareness, targeted, general, from board to people leaders, for phishing, so people working in our branches and our call centers for cybersecurity. And my team also looks after data and privacy and resilience and third-party risk as well. And then our latest family members, which joined us this year, are global outreach. So how do we partner with communities around the globe to tap on talent and address that biggest issue we have in cyber today, which is the skills shortage, and also in data privacy and resilience and other areas of risk. And then also our skills academies. So we also run for the bank our upskilling, reskilling, and cross-skilling academies to help people within cyber truly develop and grow in their careers, but also to give hopefully other people in the bank that are maybe looking for a career pivot to come and join us in those teams as well. Like a lot of people, chatting with Steph earlier before the call, Squiggly Career, there's a podcast out there if any of you are interested in non-linear careers, then I'd encourage you to look at that as well. I entered through as head of policy and awareness. Great place to start as an awareness person, because it gives you that kind of solid baseline in what the policies are that we're trying to bring to life. But as we all know, when it comes to behavior change, citing policies, you're either going to get people falling asleep or you're going to get people finding workarounds, because it's very jargon heavy. So really powerful opportunities for us to bring that to life in engaging and impactful ways. I've always been in technology, only 7 years in cyber. I say only 7 years. It's been a very full 7 years in cyber. Started out selling technical workstations to oil and gas companies in the Middle East, and that was prior to me pivoting from a music degree to a computer science master's, and then finding myself in the world of technology for the last kind of 20 plus years. Finally, a very strong advocate of getting more women into cyber and technology in general. We know it's still really underrepresented, and we're really missing out on just so many benefits by just getting more women into the cyber landscape as well. So that's a little bit about me. Very diverse background, but a lot to learn about cognitive diversity. So again, thanks, Richard. So thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Ellie. So just quickly on that, Ellie, just give us a scale of the size of the bank. How many countries, how many staff?
So it changes every day. Approximately 63 countries and around about 85,000 employees. And then of course we have third parties and contractors and vendors on top of that. So to say that we are a diverse organization by default and by design is probably a bit of an understatement. But yeah, we have a truly global footprint, and unlike a lot of global organized banks, we have a very strong revenue present from obviously Africa, Middle East, and Asian markets as well. So we're quite an unusual global footprint for a financial institution, and with that brings all sorts of opportunities as well for revenue growth as well.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Ellie. So let's kick off. First question. Diversity is much discussed. And it means lots of things to lots of people. I'm just interested to start with asking you, so what does diversity, and particularly cognitive diversity, mean for Standard Chartered Bank? Are they different? Why is it important to make that distinction between the two?
Well, we could spend a whole hour just on this, couldn't we? So let's talk about outside of the bank first, and then within the bank. And when I first reached out to my team and asked them for their ideas, I thought, right, it's all about diversity. I need to go and ask the team, what do they think? And one of the first questions that came back, I won't name them in case they're on the call, but was, what's the difference? And I was like, that's a really good question. And I think sometimes we're all incredibly familiar with this word diversity and inclusion, and a lot of us are very active in that space. We have, policies, we do a lot of awareness on it in the bank and most organizations now. And we know all the benefits of that: economic benefits, motivation, attrition, ideation, product design. We know all the benefits, don't we, of having demographic diversity. We still have quite a way to go there in some fields, don't we? But we know, at least in theory, what the benefits are of having a truly demographic, not just workforce, but friends, right? I mean, who wants to just go to dinner with your friends every time and just talk about the same stuff and have people agree with you? It would be easy. Be a lot easier in the morning, wouldn't it, waking up and not having any conflict in the day? But actually, we all know that kind of healthy friction, there's a thing called good conflict that generates ideas and generates new ways of thinking. But it kind of got me thinking, Nick, and I kind of thought, you know, I've got a really diverse team. You know, 7 or 8 nationalities on my team, and we're kind of not quite 50-50, but slightly more, used to be more females, now it's pivoting to more males, but we're kind of 50-50 male and female. We're in 7 different countries, you know, UK, India, Malaysia, Poland, Singapore. And I kind of thought, well, we're pretty diverse. I was like, okay, are we? I think we are, because we've got a lot of new talent in the team, and we've all brought very sort of diverse ways of thinking. But it kind of got me thinking that you could have a very, on the surface of it, very demographically diverse team and company and culture. That's why it's so important not to do this kind of tick box approach to diversity, because actually you've really got to understand why diversity brings those benefits. And a couple of examples, and I don't know, probably most people on this call are you know, familiar with Matthew Said's work on kind of rebel ideas, but I was just refreshing my knowledge on it the other morning, and there's some really good examples out there outside of cyber and in cyber on why diversity is so important. It's dangerous when it isn't done, and it's incredibly effective when it's done well. And maybe just a couple of examples to bring it to life. So first of all, I'm going to just call out a member of my team, Chris, who shared his perspectives on this. And he said, you know, we all talk about thinking like the hacker in the cyber world, don't we? And we always say that companies that understand how criminals think and how they use cognitive biases, you know, system 1 versus systems 2, to create scams and evoke certain emotions, we know that if we can get into the mindset of the criminal, we've got a better chance, haven't we, of not letting that sort of, you know, not letting that penetrate our own firewall. And, you know, we launched a threat-led mind center in the bank last year as part of our cyber academy. You know, we obviously hire ethical hackers like a lot of organizations do. So that's just one really simple example of how it's important to have that kind of diversity of thought, not just that demographic diversity. A couple of industry examples, I mean, some really interesting ones. He starts his book, Rebel Ideas, talking about 9/11 and how the CIA is made up of very kind of similar, you're nodding, you're very familiar with this, liberal arts.
He's one of my favorite authors. He's fantastic. And I read the book about a year ago, so I know it well. I remember that first bit about 9/11, and it's truly shocking, actually, to hear some of the restrictions that they had because of the lack of diversity.
Well, isn't it? I mean, we talk about it from a cyber perspective, and we know it's incredibly important. Otherwise, how do we protect our customers' wealth? But you're talking about national security. It's kind of another level, right? So I'm going to leave that as a teaser for those that don't know. Go and read the book. And another wonderful example he shares is the Enigma code. So a little bit similar to cyber when it comes to cracking how people think. They wanted to make sure at Bletchley Circle that they had people, in addition to the amazing Alan Turing, you know, world-class mathematician. They brought in this guy that used to do the crossword in the Telegraph, and then he was recruited by British intelligence, wasn't he, to be part of the Bletchley Circle gang. And actually, as a result of that work they did there, they kind of broke the code, and that probably ended the war three years early. So there's all these wonderful examples about, you know, a non-mathematician joining the Enigma team. You think, well, surely that's not the right thing to do. But of course, by having that diversity of thoughts and people that bring different perspectives, and of course your audience, just like we have in cybersecurity, our audience is incredibly diverse, but then our teams need to be very diverse. And I know we're going to talk a bit about that later, but yeah, all sorts of examples about the value of having diversity in your teams, but also in your cognitive makeup, but also the dangers of not having, like you might miss those kind of obvious pointers or data points that could actually help you protect your customers' data if you're working in a bank like I am.
Absolutely. And so, you know, if we focus down on cognitive diversity, you know, the difference and the different ways in which people think and solve problems what impact do you think that can have specifically around security awareness and education, and in building those sort of collaborative cultures that I think we all agree are necessary to succeed?
Well, again, big question. Try and answer it, and then let's see if people engage with us, and we can maybe go a bit further if people want to explore further. But maybe pre-cyber, kind of thinking within the bank, how we've done that, like that context. So our recent strategy, our sort of chapter 3 strategy in the bank, we got together 400 of the bank's leaders earlier this year for 3 days of kind of virtual workshopping, and I think Matthew calls it brain writing, doesn't he? Like human-centered design, not brainstorming, because brainstorming leads towards the hierarchical view. And if you've got a very senior person in that breakout room, you may or may not, especially in certain cultures, you may end up agreeing with them. So kind of brain writing and doing it on mural boards is a more neutral way, isn't it? An unbiased way of sharing your feedback. And I love that, especially when you've got people like me. I'm quite, open about my opinions, are quite vocal. There might be others that are more introverted, but you want to make sure that you capture those ideas. And I loved being part of that earlier this year, because it's this bank strategy for the next 5 years. And rather than it sort of coming down from the top, it was right. You're the bank's leaders. You're a selection of the bank's leaders. It's up to you guys. And then we had to take it all back to our teams, and then take it back to our teams. And I thought that was a very eloquent and very effective, very efficient way of getting input to a strategy, because before you know it, you've got 400 people. And then, of course, you feel more invested as well, don't you? And we've got all sorts of examples around that, like our new ways of leadership, et cetera, et cetera. But then we talked about, the context. Let's go to the context.
What sort of particular challenges did you have during that period in developing that strategy with these 400? It must have been you must have seen cognitive diversity in action there, different people coming from completely different perspectives and wanting to communicate their particular view and understanding. How did you balance all of that?
Well, that's the beauty of having, I think, first of all, you've got to have a culture, right? You've got to have this kind of psychological safety. And I know it's a really oft used and probably overused term, but it's incredibly important. Have organizations genuinely embedded it, probably at different stages. I know we've done a huge amount of work in the bank on psychological safety, about being able to feeling free to be very open about your views, providing feedback, challenging the status quo. But of course, ultimately, companies are made up of people. And I might challenge you, Nick, and you might say, that was a really good challenge, Ellie. I might challenge Richard, and you'll go, no, I don't agree, and this is why I don't agree. And then you kind of get into that stalemate. So you can provide a culture, can't you, of psychological safety, where everyone's voices feel heard and opinions matter. You can use these wonderful little tools like Mural and human-centered design and Luma techniques, which are so simple. I have a colleague who launched Lean In with me, Sharon. She's just brilliant. And even if you have a 10-minute call with her, she's like, let's jump onto Mural. And it's just brilliant, because it kind of destigmatizes, not decision making, but opinion sharing.
Yeah.
And everyone gets that opportunity. And then you do your clustering, and then you do your themes. And ultimately, people are people, and you might have stronger voices than others, but you're still providing an environment where people feel they can sort of share safely what they really feel.
And applying this to security awareness, so you then have had the opportunity to take that strategy and communicate that to your teams. In terms of security awareness, one of the challenges I think we faced is that security often, they write the security policies. They know what they want their staff to do. What they lack so often is an understanding of the day-to-day frustrations and opinions and perceptions of the people that they're expecting to sort of comply with these policies. What sort of techniques, how did you then communicate the strategy in a way that helps that sort of engagement and that collaboration and trust at the end of the day? This is all about trust.
Well, it is. You're right. I mean, we have trust in our title as a team, and it's something everything we do every day coming to work as a trust, data, resilience employee is about protecting our customers' wealth, and that's all based on trust, right? So, there's probably two parts to that question. One is the broader bank strategy, but maybe it might be more relevant for those on this call to talk about the security strategy, so the policies and the strategies, and how do you kind of bring those to life? And there's probably two angles to this, aren't there? One is your own team. How diverse is your own team, and how do you bring different ways of thinking so that you can then communicate to those 85,000 people in as relevant a way as possible. But there's also the ways in which you go to market, and that's kind of the platforms that we use, and certainly working with partners like yourself. So we look at the first one about the diversity of the team. We talked earlier, didn't we? You can have a very demographically diverse team, but if you want to really think like the hacker and you want to be serving up security awareness interventions that are relevant for your 85,000 plus audiences, you really want to make sure that you're challenging your ways of thinking. Just briefly, we set out on a quite an aggressive transformation program last year, kind of, what got us here won't get us there, because we all pivoted to working from home. We had some organizational changes. We had to completely rethink the way that we went to market, and we did a lot of soul searching. We tore up the rule book. It was quite brutal at times, but like all conflict, as long as we were, felt that it was safe and we could talk about things. But it was very interesting to see just what came out of that, and as we hired behavioral scientists, we hired adult learning specialists, I brought in consultants and vendors, and we really challenged our thinking. We talked about, growth mindset versus, fixed mindset. And as a team, we had to, and we still do, we regularly challenge ourselves. We have learning hours. As a bank, we have learning hours. Like, we're constantly, sharing what we learned. And is there something we learned on a podcast like hopefully today, or a webinar that we can then take into our work? And part of that was how we hire, and, really making sure that you don't hire people into security. I was chatting with Steph, and we both found out we didn't come from a cyber background. Well, a lot of people don't come from a cyber background in cyber, and that's a good thing. For some very technical roles, you need technical. Absolutely. Of course you do, but there's this I guess perception in cyber, and it's one of the reasons we have such a skills shortage is we create this kind of mystified, environment where you say you've got to be well, of course you don't. I mean, some roles require that, but a lot of roles, policy, information security officers, audit, process and strategy and business planning, risk reduction. So you kind of need to think about the people you're hiring when it comes to security awareness. We've got 93 roles in the bank for cybersecurity. They all have different technical competencies. They all have different skills frameworks as well. So that's the first thing we did. And then kind of the second part of that journey, swore I wasn't going to use the J word. Second part of that was how do we apply that cognitive diversity to our different platforms and our learning solutions? And you asked earlier about how we partner with people in the bank and outside. So we have to really challenge our way of working. We can't have this echo chamber as a team. We started introducing last year go-to-market reviews. We went out to, I can't even remember, it was I want to say several hundred, it might have been over 1,000 stakeholders, and just asked them, what do you think? Are you getting the content you need? Is it the right time? Is it for the right risks? And based on that, we kind of shaped our 2-3 year strategy as a team. Data, of course, the use of data, how we might start to use data a lot more powerfully. Some really good examples from the team about, at the moment, we go after roles within organizations. We do targeted role training, if you're a people leader. But what about if you were to use data, and again, this is one of Chris's ideas about, could you target people more with cognitive vulnerability, cognitive bias? Maybe they're very trustworthy and they click on everything. I mean, couldn't that be quite interesting to kind of dig a bit deeper on that and not just think about roles, but also, the ways that different people think?
It's really getting into the behavioral science, isn't it? And developing the personas that are the behavioral profiles of groups of people. And that's certainly some of the work that Phil Morgan's been doing from Cardiff University, who's presenting in January. So there's going to be some overlap. It's quite exciting and interesting overlap between what you're talking about today and what Phil's talking about, and some of the work that he's doing. So yeah, it's actually trying to create these understanding the why. Why do we behave in particular? Why does a particular individual or group of people behave in particular ways? Faced with the same challenge, same threat, we will behave differently. And it's that the holy grail is understanding that why piece.
I could not agree more. And if that's the single biggest takeaway that we have from this, I think it is that. And you asked about that kind of context specific security training. I mean, obviously you need data and you need automation and you need platforms, and you've got 85,000 people. You can't go out and ask each one of them every time they click, why did you click? this dreadful word we use, repeat offenders in the industry, rather than actually, if you empower people and you train and you educate them, at least try and understand why they're clicking. And there's some really good research out there. There's tons of great research, but one I just wanted to call out, Nick, was the old kind of 5 mental constructs of why people behave insecurely. And then if you can understand, if you've got the data, if you've got the automation and the platforms, and one of the things we're really excited to see about when we start working with the cyber risk aware platform is getting data and seeing, is there a pattern of employees or role types, or to Chris's point, cognitive bias types, and then we might need to tweak our training. I mean, just for those out there, so the 5 mental constructs are self-interest. Do people really understand kind of what's in it for them? Is it, am I going to get rewarded or keep my job, or am I going to get punished? The other one is knowledge of policy. Well, you can't expect people to understand detailed jargon, quite dull sometimes, policies. You've got to bring it to life in a way that, and we pivoted substantially when I joined the bank. We went from, you've got to do it because it's the policy. Well, no one's going to change their behavior because you tell them it's the policy, to treating them like adults, like explaining why this is the risk. This is the risk to the organization when you don't send your password via a different channel. This is what actually happens if you send the email to the wrong client in the first place. But if you send your password by a different band, crisis averted. So there's all these examples. And perceived risk, is it really that perceived risk? Oh, there's loads of technical controls, but there may not be. And you've got to just try and explain to people and then understand why they're behaving insecurely at the time, at the moment, haven't you?
Which will take time. And I think you as you said, the important thing is that you test and you adapt your campaigns, your training campaigns. And of course, you've got a particular challenge in over 70 countries where there's all sorts of different diverse views across all of those regions. So just coming back on something you raised there, the context specific piece, Ellie. So how important do you see this context specific security, actually training at the point of need when someone has done something, risky, for example?
Well, look, it's incredibly important, and it's one of our one of our pillars of our kind of vision of learning as we build out our plan in 2022. And we kind of talked about, you need the foundation in place, which is your diverse people. Great, tick. And of course, that's how you continue to retain and develop and promote and all the rest. But you're kind of, then you've got to think about how you go to market. And for us, platforms are incredibly important. Of course they are, because of that breadth of audience that we're trying to reach. I mean, it kind of feels almost so obvious, it's embarrassing to say it. Like, why would we serve up the same training for 85,000 people? You know what I mean? Why would we do that? Well, we know there are evergreen topics, and we know there's constantly new threats. But you kind of want to do your evergreen stuff, don't you? Your ransomware and your phishing and your classification. You've got a lot of people coming into the bank and new people. So you kind of want to keep those going as foundational. Granted, but our whole theme for really now onwards is, right content, right time, right role, and right risk. And maybe we need to add right cognitive bias when we get more intelligent in our data usage with 2023's plan. But it's incredibly important for us because it gives us that insights, not only where the risks are, they might be geographical, they might be probably very likely related to the role, right? I mean, if you are working in a role in the bank or in any organization where you receive 100 attachments a week, legal, marketing, your likelihood, your probability of clicking is going to be much greater than somebody that doesn't get any attachments. And then suddenly you do a phishing simulation with an attachment, well, it's going to stand out, right? So you do need to get more nuance. And what we're really looking forward to exploring with your platform is looking at the injects from our own systems and then seeing, are there patterns of behavior of people that don't classify, or people that, let's look at the positives, people that report. Is there a certain tone from the top in some parts of the organization that encourage reporting of incidents, which is a huge control, human control, that we have power over. And it's probably more valuable, as if not more valuable, than not clicking on the link. We know that, don't we? Maybe we have a tone from the top. Maybe that part of the business has created a really good culture, not this culture of fear, but when you do this, I will call you out in a team meeting. And there's all these little levers you can pull, aren't there, as well as the
it's such a powerful point. All too often security awareness is there to identify risky behaviors, and clearly that's important. We do need to do that, but it's as much for me as rewarding positive behaviors, you know, increasing the reporting of suspicious emails, and again building that trust and collaboration with people to say that this is a journey that we're all going on, and you know, you're part of this, you have a role to play, and we want to help you play that role as effectively as possible.
100%. And we, you know, you can, I'm a half glass full kind of person, admittedly, and not everyone is, but the reality is you've got in any large organization the potential to either create a culture of fear and put the fear of God into people if they conduct risky behavior, or you've got an opportunity to say, actually, you could be an incredibly empowered workforce, you can be a security agent, you can be part of our biggest line of defense, but we've got to treat you like adults, we've got to serve you up content at the right time. You know, one of the things we really need to be looking at is if, for example, let's say you have a team and they're really good at not clicking on links, they're really good at reporting incidents, and they're really good at classifying data, but they're really bad at, I don't know, reporting data breaches. Well, kind of, why would you invest all that time and effort and money in educating them on the stuff they're really good at when you've kind of got your goal? You know, we talk a lot about Goldilocks in security, don't we? As long as you're there in the guardrails, that's good. That's good enough. Depending on what your risk appetite and your threshold is, surely you'd want to invest your attention in the areas where there are the biggest gaps. It sounds so blatantly obvious, doesn't it? But you need data to do that, and you need intelligence, and you need insights to do that. And of course, not everyone has got access to that. But we've got to start treating people like adults and empowering them to do it, and also adding technical controls to make it easier. So we're, you know, like whether it's adding the ability to report an incident via the mobile phone, whether it's helping people now, a lot of people are working from home, helping them understand the risks of working from home, maybe more than risks of working in the bank. I mean, you know, we still work for a financial institution, but if you're working in a flexi office or a cafe, maybe we need to dial up our campaigns on working outside the office, which we've done a lot of this year, to actually help people feel empowered rather than fearful of going into work in these offices. So it's that balance, isn't it, Nick? Yeah.
And making this guidance and advice and training actionable as well. It's got to be something that you understand and can action. It's doable in your day-to-day work. You know, anything that sort of takes you out of that makes it difficult, or you know, takes a lot of time to be compliant with the policies is always a bit of a,
isn't it? And that's one of the 5 reasons people behave insecurely, and it's the biggest negative. If you look at the impact that the levers have on improving security behavior, the biggest negative, if that makes sense, is the compliance to the perceived burden of compliance. So if it's too hard to remember multiple passwords, or it's too difficult to find the phone number, especially now I'm working from home, to report that, you know, we've launched a huge campaign in the bank this year, and it's multi-phased around reporting incidents. And one of the things we're doing is we're giving them really simple infographics on where to go, where to report data breaches, lost laptops, whatever it might look like. But also we're looking at the rewards versus punitive. I mean, we know research shows time and time again that people behave as securely if they're rewarded than if they're, you know, made to feel fearful. We know that. Research shows it time and time again, and yet still in the industry we battle with this kind of, you know, repeat offenders kind of approach. I mean, why not instead? We just launched a true crime stories hub for our team, where we're telling stories of fantastic employees in the bank who help protect our customers' data by reporting a data breach, or by reporting a voice phishing attempt, and how they might have saved a potential malware or phishing attack. So isn't that a more joyful environment to come into, in a safer environment? Because you can guarantee if somebody reads about that, they're going to carry on that behavior, versus if you punish them and make them feel fearful. But it's an individual choice.
You've given me the perfect cue to the next question, Ellie. So I think we're both passionate about the power of storytelling. Those that have been on previous People Matter webinars will know my passion for this. You know, and everyone has either been a target and victim of an attack, or knows someone that's been a target or victim of a cyber attack, and that in itself is quite a scary thought. So what's your view about storytelling, and do you see the power of stories helping to support cognitive diversity? I'm a big believer in, one way in building confidence and trust is encouraging employees, your staff, to share their own stories in a little trusted environment. There's no need to be technical. There's no blame attached to this. It's about sharing that and discussing it. That's really powerful.
Well, gosh, I mean, it really is, isn't it? And yeah, I mean, there's so many different angles we could go off of this, whether it's leadership styles or the way that we engage with our family and friends, the way that we educate our employees on security awareness. But since we're on security awareness one, let's talk about that. And I love what you said about the sharing stories. We talk about the power of kind of leaderboards and inviting people to come and when we see that one team has maybe got a really good reporting rate or a really good classification rate, it's kind of why, like, what is it? So come and tell us, And actually, Luella, who's now moved on to another role in the bank, but she did a fantastic job at going out and with the rest of her team to go out and ask them about stories. And our first one is a fantastic example in the career team, and what a great story, right? What a great opportunity to, in a very challenging environment when we no longer have those physical nudges in the office, right? We've taken away the posters and the videos. We no longer have somebody we can turn to, especially if you're an intern or a grad, right? We have many on our team. They don't have people they can just turn to and say, hey, what about this? So they don't have all those little physical nudges, and we're suddenly expecting them to all be really cyber aware. So what a great way to kind of pivot the tables and say, hey, you saved potentially this entire network from malware being installed, or you saved giving out customer data because you realized it was a voice phishing call. I mean, that's incredibly powerful. Isn't that, I mean, that has to be, I'm sure there's research that backs this up, but that has to be more impactful in changing behavior and reducing the risk. And that's everything we do is about reducing the risk and protecting our clients' wealth. That has to encourage better, more secure behavior than sending a long list of policy links and standard links and saying, you've got to do it because the bank says so. I mean, oh my goodness, that's just, you've got to bring it to life. That's our job, to bring it to life. But, through policies, storytelling is definitely the way forward, isn't it?
I've written a recent blog talking about, cyber attackers enjoy us being boring. They like us to be boring. Often I've seen bullet point guidance, don't do this, don't do that. Very, very dull. Just turn it into a story. In my old role, actually, one of our clients, they asked us, because we'd already written a story called Whaling for Beginners, which talks about this, but it talks about the journey a fictional CEO goes on when he realizes he's the target victim of an attack, and the catastrophic impact it has on his company and his clients as well.
If I may continue the fish analogy, we did a Don't Be Like Marlin phishing campaign earlier this year. I mean, poor Marlin, we're hoping to resurrect him in a future campaign, but it was him sitting at a desk, so him in the sea and seeing a bite and going after the bite and ends up in a tuna can. And we kind of rewind the video. Actually, had he not gone for that fishing bite, he would still be sailing through the sea, with his lifelong partner. And how do you kind of bring it to life in a way that's memorable and engaging? And you want to make it a little bit lighthearted, but it's also a very real risk. How do you do it in a way that's memorable? So I'm going to be reading that book about whaling.
Well, and we took it further, because one of our clients then came to us and said, well, can you come and create short stories, interview some of our staff, and actually bring to life some of their real experiences as well? Super. So very short little vignettes, which were then used in team meetings, lunch and learns, etc., etc. And they've turned it into learning content as well. It's just fantastic, and it answers that question. So one of the big barriers to learning, I think, for all of us is, why me? What's this? What's this going to do for me? First and foremost. And I think if it is a story that you can relate to in your personal life, whether that's at home or in the office, is just so much more powerful. So much more powerful.
And look, we have, and there is nothing. I don't say there's nothing positive. I don't like to use the word positive out of the last year and a half, but sort of things that have kind of bubbled to the surface around ways in which we might do things differently. We now do have even more of an opportunity to talk about the personal aspects of cybersecurity, don't we? Because now we're home, so there's all these other distractions going on. We don't have those physical nudges, but hopefully we can help people be more cyber secure at home with their networks and their, the devices, what their devices are connected to. I mean, we have very, very strict controls about what our devices can and can't connect to, but how do we just help people in their personal lives be more secure? Because we've all got bank accounts, and most of us are working from home. And just Vina on my team, and we just started. I want to give a shout out to her. She shared that example as well. We've got this example where if we don't pivot and we're not agile enough, we're going to be stuck in serving up security awareness that's meant for the office. Hardly anyone's there, right?
Not,
so
absolutely,
you really got to pivot it. And I really challenged the team last year. I said we can't continue to serve up, and we all kind of explored ways that we might do things differently, also using new ways like mind gyms and brain training and just stuff that we might use in our personal kind of gaming, our own personal gaming habits. We might use, how do we use those for corporate training as well? Why not? I mean, it's all the same risk really at the end of the day, isn't it?
Absolutely. Thanks, Ellie. So conscious of time, we're coming up to 45 minutes. So just to sort of start sort of closing down, what in terms of things that you would recommend to people on the webinar today, what sort of, have you got, let's say, 3 things that you would recommend to any organization who want to exploit cognitive diversity in the workplace? What would you say they could do, where they might start?
3's a challenge, but I know that everyone loves to think in 3s because that's the way that we remember things. So I'd start with culture. Everything starts with culture. That whole kind of off-cited thing, tone from the top. I mean, the way you hire people, the way that you encourage it. And we learned a lot as a team. I learned a lot as a leader last year, and I've done a few kind of, we did a lot around new ways of leadership last year in the bank, and this year in the bank, intent-led leadership, failing fast, failing forward. I mean, it's quite inspiring working for an organization, a very established, 160 years old. We've really pivoted on a lot of our kind of, performance management and leadership style, and the way that we encourage this kind of psychological safety in an organization. I think we have to do that properly. We can't just pay it lip service. I am definitely a work in progress. You asked my team, I'm a work in progress on that, but I'm really trying to hold myself accountable for the way that we create an environment where, whether it's platforms, data, taking the leader out the meetings and having your own team meetings, which we do now, getting other people to chair meetings. I mean, tiny little simple nudges, right? So that would be the first one. I think just create that environment as a leader where, it's actively encouraged and lived, not just kind of the boxes just ticked, and then showcase examples of how better ways of working are leading to risk reduction. I mean, what a great way to kind of prove the benefit of it. That would be the first one. I think the second one is be ready to unlearn. I mean, really, we just got to unlearn a whole load of stuff, right? We talk a lot about that in the bank. I mean, my goodness, there's a lot of people who've been in the bank for a very long time, same in a lot of organizations, and you have that kind of institutional knowledge, don't you? And I've been really encouraged at our leadership team. They just, this whole idea, new ways of working and fail forward and fail fast and intent-led leadership, moving away from, managing to leading. And I think if you've got to unlearn a lot of stuff in order to have the neural space to kind of learn all this new
and
stuff.
particularly relevant in this space, where it's driven into a certain things, and then all, for whatever reason, the guidance changes and the threat changes, and our response to that needs to change.
Totally. I mean, look, so many implications for cyber landscape, aren't there? We can't just say, well, this is our training for the year, because something might happen over the weekend where you then have to come up with a new campaign. It might be a new risk or a new role in the organization. So definitely, and that's what we did last year. We tore down the house, we rebuilt it. It was messy, but I kept on saying it's going to be beautiful at the end. It's going to be messy now, but you kind of got to unlearn and unbuild stuff. And I think the third one is just trust the process. It's what we talk a lot about in coaching, right? Trust the process. That there's a lot of kind of, and it's kind of the perfect ending to this topic about, but I've got it sussed in my mind, and this is the way that it should be. And I've spent ages studying and learning and applying this in my career. It's a bit like the unlearn thing, isn't it? It's like, you just got to trust the process. If you embrace this thing called cognitive diversity and neurodiversity, and learn a bit more about your colleagues, and learn about, our head of data and privacy, just quickly, he said last week, he said an old boss of his told me last week, used to ask every team member how many siblings they had, because that would explain how they behaved in team meetings. Oh, no, that's brilliant.
There's
But I'm two sets boy-girl twins. How are they going to explain that? But
I need to find the research to back that up.
it's
I wonder
brilliant,
what
isn't it? Exactly. I'll ask them, Najib. I thought that was very intelligent. It's like, we do a lot of personal profiling, don't we, in organizations that tell you what kind of personality type you are. But actually, it's incredibly important that you trust that process of, well, the more you understand where people come from and their backgrounds, and especially now with all the stress that's going on behind the scenes and well-being, is you've got to have a context, haven't you, to this kind of stuff. And you just trust the process.
And for me, the importance, we're trying to educate people. So we're communicating with lots and lots of people. Just start the conversation with your staff, understand what their lived experience is, and to try and get inside their heads some of their what's working well, what's not working so well, just to get and obviously you can't do that with everybody, but you can do research, you can do surveys, but you can talk to lots of people to get their their fears, their concerns, what makes them uncomfortable, and that's all can inform the way in which we educate and train people in terms of the techniques and the way in which we use the words in communicating this stuff. And it's obviously, as we've said already, it's got to be a positive message. This is not about any sort of blame at all. It's, we're all helping each other in trying to keep the company as safe as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all about the people, right? I mean, your seminar's called People Matters, and everything's about people. End of the day, politics, technology, companies, life. I mean, it's you've got 85,000 different people with different requirements and different ways of working and doing things, and it's challenging to embrace that. Unless you've got those kind of abilities to go out and ask them and capture that data. But we kind of owe them, really, don't we, as audiences? Otherwise, are we really addressing the risk that we need to address?
Absolutely. We've got just a quick question, Ellie. So you mentioned psychological safety, that the executive team is very, very keen about. What do you see the similarities between security training, security awareness training, and wider training like mental health and safety for all, whether that's at home or at work? How do you see the balance and the integration of all of those?
Oh gosh, I mean, I got to be honest. When you kind of asked me this last week, I really scratched my head around this, because the obvious answer is yes, but then why? Kind of everything links to mental health and well-being. The last year and a half, if nothing else, just the awareness of the importance of understanding the context of the lives that we're living and the challenges and personal challenges we're all going through. And I'm going to cite one of my team members again, Vina, who brilliant, only been in the team for a few weeks and came up with a whole load of insights for this webinar. And her answer was absolutely yes. She said it should do, because if an employee, and I thought it was a really insightful comment of hers, thank you, Vina. I haven't had a chance to tell her in person yet. She said if an employee feels safe and listened to and not judged, and if they don't know a question, let's say about cybersecurity, and they can go and ask their line manager, and they've got that kind of whole psychological safety, and they've got the awareness, and it's pitched right at the right time, and all those wonderful things in place, then the risk is going to be reduced, isn't it? So you can't really unpack, you can't really separate the two. And then similarly, what she said was, if you've got an employee, of which we have seen a lot of friends, right, and colleagues and family members go through a lot of pressures the last year and a half because of COVID, well, they're less likely to be maybe aware. Maybe they're tired, maybe they've been up, maybe they're homeschooling their kids, maybe their network's down. I mean, all these additional pressures that we haven't had to face as individuals in the past. Well, isn't that going to increase the risk? I think she had a really good point to that, right? It is going to increase the risk. So it's kind of incumbent on us, isn't it, as teams, which we do a lot of in the bank. I mean, it's a lot of trying to data gathering about how people are feeling and what are they concerned about. Because if you can kind of take those themes and address them in your whole leadership style, but also in your security training and your, say, security, data and privacy and resilience and all these other types of training that we do, then you're probably going to have a much better chance of reducing that risk, aren't you, and changing behaviours.
It's very powerful. If you can be seen to be active, you said, you stressed the word actively there earlier on, actively engaging, collaborating with, asking questions, listening to your people, rather than this is what we need you to do, that's so much more powerful. So the final question, Ellie, is hopefully a little bit of a fun one. So what do you love about your job? And what would you say is the biggest lesson that you've learned in security awareness and education?
Oh, wow. Again, just gosh, lots of potential.
You do love your job, don't you?
Well, look, I mean, you don't do this job unless you love it, right? I mean, cyber is anyone that works in, data and privacy or operational resilience, and I mean, everyone knows it's an intense career. I mean, it's wonderfully rich, but it is full on, and of course, we've got this diverse landscape that's always changing. So absolutely, I mean, you gotta love it, right? And I think as long as there are more high points in your day, that's always a good thing. And I've been almost 8 years, and I think what I love most is that, I mean, literally every day I'm learning stuff, and I do not mean that glibly. I mean, every day I'm learning stuff, and not just about trust and data and resilience, the fields, but about new ways of leadership, about this stuff, cognitive diversity, right? I mean, and yeah, last 18 months, it's been kind of personal professional development on steroids, right? We've all had to learn a lot and unlearn a lot of stuff.
That was a very powerful point. Yeah.
And just the variety of it. One day you could be presenting to young girls in Kenya. The next you can be, working with our head of strategy and change, our business planning and new ways of working. And next day we're discussing with risk colleagues how to, improve risk culture. I mean, it's just, there's never a dull moment, ever.
Hopefully this discussion has been one of the high points for today. I don't know how your day has been.
It really is.
You're obviously at the end of your day rather than us at the start of our day. But Ellie, thank you so much. That's been fantastic. We're really looking forward to working with you and the rest of your team as we progress. Yes. Thank you to everyone on the call today. Please, if you have any feedback about today, any follow-up questions, please do contact me. Any ideas about future themes for discussion at future events? The next Cyber Risk Aware or People Matter event is in January, as you can see there, with Professor Phil Morgan, who is the Professor in Human Factors and Cognitive Psychology at Cardiff University. And Phil, the fascinating thing about Phil is that he's not just an academic, he's applying the science. So he's actually embedded at Airbus as well. So he and his team are actually actively using the research and the work that they've done in a real world environment, and quite a complex organizational environment. So really looking forward to the discussion with Phil in January. We'll be starting to market that event in the very near future. So finally, thank you to everyone. Thank you, Ellie. Been fascinating as always in talking with you. Any feedback, please do let us know. If you want to talk to me about the work that we're doing, please come and talk to me. And we look forward to the next session. So thanks again, Ellie, and we'll talk very soon.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining. Hope you found it helpful.
Thanks everyone. Take care.